Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had a viewer post a comment under my Louie Simmons ballistic benching video earlier, which I thought was hilarious, and it's worth discussing because I haven't really discussed drug testing lately that much, I suppose. I used to talk about this a lot. And he's saying, you know what, you can't say all of Louie's athletes are on gear. He has some professional athletes who are tested. They're drug tested. They're not on gear. Are you saying they're all on gear? Actually, yes, I'm saying they're all on gear. So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, do a little bit of crafting, and let's talk about that. All right. Okay, let me just be frank. Anyone who thinks that drug testing in sports actually works is so naive that if you're one of those people, I have some real estate to sell you. I have some oceanfront property in Arizona I will sell you at a fantastic price because that's how perceptive of a person you are. Actually, what I'm saying is if you believe that, you're absurdly naive, for those who don't get the joke. And you're going to be easily conned for the rest of your life if you actually think drug testing in sports works in spite of all the evidence that it doesn't. And all the athletes who tell you that it doesn't also. And even scientists and stuff who tell you that it doesn't work. So let's just be honest there. Now, as far as that goes, Louie Simmons has always said, and I've heard him say this in lectures, and yeah, I am a fan of Louie's work. I don't always agree with all it, but I'm a fan of his work. The guy is a mad scientist. But being a mad scientist, that also includes drugs. And Louie's one of those guys who doesn't believe that people should be coming off. He doesn't believe in the cycling stuff, at least from my interpretation of things. Now, that being said, he has also said, that the way that he trains and the way that he trains his athletes requires drugs to recover because the workloads are so intense that without drugs, a normal human being just couldn't adapt to and recover from those sort of workloads. It just can't be done. The training is too intense, too much volume, too much workload. Drugs are just part of the equation. Now, and Louie has also said that, people want to say these things, well, it's all drugs, it's all drugs. He's also said that, he's got a bottle of testosterone sitting on his dresser shelf in his bedroom, and he promises you that it can't bench anything. That he could go stick it under a bar right now, and the testosterone is not going to be able to bench even an empty bar. All right, I've heard him make kind of statements like that. It's part of the equation. It's one of the tools of the trade. It's not all drugs. There is intense training and technique and a lot of knowledge involved with what he has his guys do. Drugs are one part of the factor for them. But he'll say stuff like that, and I say stuff like that, and people will still chime in, well, these professional athletes, they're all drug tested. Do you guys not remember Victor Conte? I mean, this is something that was everywhere. Everyone, I thought, knew this who follows any of this stuff online. Remember when Victor Conte got interviewed by Joe Rogan? All right, Victor Conte ran Balco Labs. He spent a few years in white-collar prison for it. He had over 5,000 professional athletes on his customer list. He had over 5,000 on the list of names they found. All right, that was his clients, over 5,000 athletes. Now stop and think about how many professional athletes there are in the world. That's a pretty decent chunk, all right? And he said that his lab was only one. There's probably a dozen other labs out there doing the same thing he was doing. And they were designing designer steroids before tests existed for them. And they would have a couple of them in development at any given time so that they would be 2 to 3 steps ahead of WADA. So that as soon as they started finding the metabolites in anyone who was using the substance they were making, they would kick it out of the rotation, go to the next one that was in development. So that, again, they were always ahead of them. So when they were developing new tests to catch new drugs or identify these weird metabolites, they were finding as soon as anyone detected a trace, he had insiders who would let him know, they would switch over to the new drug. Done. All right? And he had said that he said many, many times in that interview and himself that drug testing in sports is nothing more than an IQ test. That's it. It's an IQ test. Or an IQ test for the people who are designing and helping you with your drugs, the medical doctors. Helping people pass drug tests is a science. It's a very lucrative and profitable science. There's so many billions and billions of dollars involved in sports and so much prestige for countries that there's a lot of resources thrown into making sure that athletes can pass drug tests. In fact, some federations even have rules put in place like the NFL to make it easier for people to pass. Do you know why? Because if you took drugs out of the NFL, it would suck and nobody would watch it. No one would watch another fucking Super Bowl forever because the athletes would be too slow and fucking weak to impress anyone. That's the real world. Welcome to reality. People want to see superhumans compete in sports. And football in America is our modern gladiator event. We want to see superhumans beating each other up on a field. We want to see bigger, stronger, faster. That's it. No one cares about anything else with that. And they make it sound like it's a big deal politically and everything, and we make such a big fuss about it. But the truth is, there is very little done to stop it inside professional sports. All right, professional sports, the investors and the team owners and everyone else know the drugs have to stay. And so they put on a dog and pony show of testing, but they give them easy ways to get around it to help the athletes get around it with their doctors. And you can do a little digging and see how that works in the NFL. It's set up that way because the team owners know that without drugs, nobody's making money. All right, that's reality. Then look at the 2012 Olympic Games. All right, look at all those lab reports we had. There was a drug developed back in the 1950s called turinabol. That's how old this anabolic is. You know what? It's still used today. And up until 2012, do you know what the detection time on this drug was? 72 hours on urine. In blood, it's like 8 to 12 hours. All right, so a blood test, it's harder to detect in urine. The metabolites from this drug appeared in urine up to 72 hours after you took it, and then you test clean. It means you only had to come off of it for 3 days before you were clean. It's very inexpensive. It's available around the world. And so guess what happened in 2012? They kept a bunch of the urine samples for the Olympics. The Olympics, they actually do try to test them. They try to catch them. Because there's an international interest in catching other countries' teams. So everyone wants everyone else's teams to get caught. There's a real effort to catch them. But you know what? They have to let all the coaches and the athletes know what drug testing is available that they're going to be subjected to. That's just part of the rules. Otherwise, it's not fair. They have to know what testing method you have. Well, they had all these athletes in 2012 who tested clean. Their urine samples were clean in the 2012 games. How much do you think they spent on that, by the way? Anyone remember? $4 billion. They spent $4 billion for the drug testing leading up to and at the end of the 2012 Olympic Games. $4 billion in drug testing. So the Olympics are actually serious. Do you know what they found when they developed a new test in 2013? They developed a new test for turinabol in 2013. They could detect it 7 to 10 days after you took it, not just 72 hours. Not 3 days, but they extended it out to 7 to 10 days. When they ran through the urine samples using the new test, the frozen urine that was a year old, that were all previously clean urine samples, what do you think they found? Out of the ones that they had in storage, they found over 200 positives for turinabol out of the previously clean samples using the newer drug test that they developed a year later. All right, 200 using the new test that had tested clean on the previous test. All it did was extend the detection time. So all those athletes who took those urine tests had come off this drug knowing they would test clean if they gave it X number of days. They put out a new test. They catch over 200 of them there. Now, a lot of them didn't necessarily get in trouble because it's a newer test and they are not allowed to use the new test on the old samples. But when you see stuff like that, when you see the stuff like Balco Labs, you see the stuff like that one little change in the turinabol test in the Olympics, and you see the amount of money involved, anybody who really thinks that drug testing stops people from using drugs is insanely naive. They're either naive or stupid, all right? And you can be naive without being stupid. It just means lack of experience in life. But anyone who honestly believes that most professional athletes aren't on drugs isn't keeping up with what's going on in the world. They're easily fooled. They're being suckered on that one. And the truth is, if we got rid of drugs in sports, less people would watch them. That's the simple reality. No one wants to see normal men and women up there. They want to see superhumans. They want to see superheroes. And that requires a combination of amazing genetic gifts and talents, usually combined with the best drugs available. That's just simple reality. Most of our athletes are chemically enhanced. They're genetically superhumans in some ways. They're genetic freaks most of the time, combined with chemical enhancement. That's the name of the game. That's the nature of modern sports. They're that competitive. There's that much money involved. To think with the amount of money involved in modern professional sports and the amount of researchers and doctors who are willing to assist with this for a little bit of money, sometimes a lot of money, anyone who honestly thinks that the drug testing is catching that many people who are cheating, again, doesn't work that way. There's a whole business and science around getting people through drug testing. It's a business, and it's very, very profitable. And yeah, the success rate in catching athletes who are actually doping is probably less than 1%. Meaning for every 100 people who are out there using stuff in professional sports at the elite level, one or less of them are being caught. Or a better way to put it, for every one of them who gets caught, at least 100 or more are getting away with it. Again, that's the real world. So anyone who says that because Louie's got some athletes who are tested because they're professional athletes that they must be clean, I don't think so. I agree with what Louie said before. To train the way that he has his people train and the way that he trains requires drugs that a normal human cannot recover from those sort of workloads without it. I think he's right. I agree with him. I agree with him 100%. I think he's dead on the money there. And anyone who's not listening to that, who doesn't heard that line, and then sees that he trains professional athletes too who train with those same workloads, to think that they're not on anything, again, come on. Hopefully no one out there is that naive. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.